Let's go to Lindsay in Louisville, Kentucky. Hey, Lindsay, what's up?
Hey, John, how are you?
We are making it work today. How are you?
Woo. That was heavy. That was heavy stuff.
Yeah, so for the listener, Lindsay's been on hold, on the line on hold, and so you heard via telephone that last phone call there. This is a heavy episode today. So tell us what's going on in your world.
Well, man, I want to give her a hug, and I want to tell you to hang up with me and call her back. But man, my question is how I can help my 13-year-old daughter who is navigating through losing a friend to suicide.
So what happened? Grade. Yeah, what happened?
This wasn't a bestie of hers. It was someone that she had several classes with, someone that she considered a friend at school. They were math partners, and he, from what I understand, shot himself.
Okay.
And he actually initially lived, and so he was in ICU for a couple of days. So all the kids knew that. So it was almost like them reliving it twice.
Yeah, and how old's your daughter?
13.
Oh, geez. Yeah, that 13-year-old gossip rumor mill. I heard what happened. Can you believe? Just been something fierce. Golly, man.
Yeah.
What a mess.
Yeah.
Okay. Ultimately, he passed away. So, how has she been at home?
She, it's been about a month since then. So, we've seen a drastic difference in her. She went through a really hard week. I mean, that first week was just really, really tough.
Yeah.
She kind of has transitioned into this, I want to help everybody.
Yep.
And I want to make sure nobody else is going through a hard time. And I don't know, maybe that means she's going to be a therapist one day. But I still worry about her.
Sure.
I mean, she just 2 days ago sat with a friend. Her friend asked her to sit with her in the counseling office because she's had some of those same thoughts and stuff going through her mind.
Yep.
And I can just feel the weight.
Yeah. Whew. Okay. So I'll start it with this. Our kids can only be as well as we are.
Right.
And so anytime our 13-year-olds, I got a 12-year-old in my house, anytime our 13-year-olds or 12-year-olds or 16-year-olds or 9-year-olds are struggling, the first place we parents got to go is the mirror and make sure we're okay. What does okay mean? That means you would be pathological. You would be psychotic if you didn't immediately go, what if that was my kid?
Right.
As mom, what did I miss? Or I can't believe his mom. What do I do? I don't know what I should be doing. Should we do something? Right? All those things. And for some of us, that makes us reach for one more bowl of ice cream or 2 more drinks, or we turn the TV up a little bit more, or we stare at our phones a little bit more. Some of it is drastic. It reminds us of somebody we lost 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 25 years ago, right? All that to say is, parents, we got to go to the mirror first and make sure we're modeling what grief should look like. And I hate shoulds most of the time. Not all the time. There's some really important shoulds, but this is an important one. And this is when, we're watching natural disasters or war or whatever. When we have trauma, kids look to us for, how am I supposed to respond to this? So here's a couple of things. You know this, but I'll just to make sure. And I've been through this at the high school level. I've been through this personally. I've been through this at the college level and beyond. So there's something incredibly visceral for a kid when they look over and there's an empty seat. It's a reminder. It's a story that their bodies are not prepared for. Adults have we experience more loss, whether directly or peripherally, right? We understand this. There's something when that first 13-year-old looks over in the classroom, there's an empty seat. There's a black hole there that is indescribable. They don't have words for it. Most of us don't have words for it. And I'm going to get choked up thinking about some of the students that I've lost and buried and done their funerals for them. The second thing that is brutal, that affects all of us, that affected the last caller, that affects moms and dads, that affects math partners, is this haunting question, what did I miss? Which turns into, this is my fault. If I had only seen something, if I had only done something, if I'd only asked something. And here's the ugly part about that question is sometimes there's some truth to that. I should have just asked, or I should have said something. Often, there is nothing, you know what I mean? There's nothing out there. At any step along the way, that's a question that bears no fruit. I'm haunted by some photos of students that I've lost, that some of the celebrities that have passed away by suicide the last few years. You know, I'm trying to think of the one that it was the lead singer, the lead singer of Linkin Park, Chester Benningfield, whose wife posted a picture and said, "This is the face of somebody suffering from suicidal ideation." And it was her husband laughing his head off playing with his kids like 2 or 3 days before he took his life, before he died by suicide. And so to think we can guess is often impossible. If you can see something in action and you get some clear signs, and we'll talk about that later on in the show, yes, there's some things you can do, like that good interventions, but for most of us, man, it's just our math partner, just our friend. We laugh and we go about our day. I had no idea people were hurting like they were inside. And then like we mentioned earlier, man, the stories and the rumor mills and he was my friend, no, he's my boyfriend, no, I really loved him, all of that. Oh my, it's catastrophic. It's like social media pile-ons, but it's in real life. You know what I mean? Is that sweet girl I just imagine her just getting buried with this. You have her own guilt on top of there's an empty seat in those classes, on top of, hey, did you hear this? Hey, I heard this. I heard his mom. I heard he would. And for a 13-year-old man, it's so heavy. So heavy. So you say she had a really rough week, which is to be expected. Here's my concern for her. Her job as a 13-year-old is to make sure she's okay. And I'm worried about her, any 13-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 18-year-olds, 25-year-olds, trying to run from this guilt, trying to run from this empty chair into, I'm going to solve everyone else's problems because it keeps me from having to sit in the fact that the world is really hard and that sometimes people we care about pass away. And that's where she needs you in a real, real way. Tell me about the conversations y'all have had about suicide, about grief, about passing.
We have a pretty open line of communication with her. My husband is military. He's lost friends to suicide and on the battlefield and things like that. So he's probably been more of a help and support to her than anything. My best friend is an LMFT.
Oh,
and
fantastic.
I've got her on speed dial.
Yes. Good.
I really, when I think about the relationship that I have with my daughter, I feel like it's really great. I feel like we can talk about really anything. She actually says I have a John Delony problem because I'm constantly picking apart conversations that you've had with callers. And she's like, you may have a problem, Mom.
You should probably go see somebody, Lindsay. That is not a good problem to have.
So we have talked about what death looks like. She did not want to go to they had a wake for him. She didn't want to go. She didn't want to deal with it. But we really encouraged her to go.
Oh, thank you. Did she ultimately go?
She did.
Oh.
She did.
Hey, you get Parenting Award of the Year just for that move right there. Every parent listening, if your child has somebody in their life who dies, they need to go to the funeral, full stop. They need to go, even if they don't want to go. And if they don't want to go, you go with them. And if you can't go, find somebody. They need that. That will be something that reverberates through their body for years and years and years. Good for you, Lindsay. Oh, so good.
Thank you. That was hard.
Yeah.
That was so hard. I mean, I literally felt like I was pushing her out the door crying.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
She went with a group of friends. Her math teacher was there, which was super helpful. And it was so great for her to witness others grieve around her.
It has to have a witness. That's right. That's right.
And she has talked about that for the past month. She's talked about that.
Yeah.
She's talked about how they've kind of been a support for each other at school. She's kind of made it her mission to help others, and she wants to help others.
And so I think the hard part as a parent is reining some of that in, meaning she can't take. I've spent my career teaching faculty members, parents, administrators at school that when a child is in need, that they need to pass that on. These are professional adults. They need to turn that over to professionals. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They don't have the tools or equipment or strength to carry that, to know what to do next. And if you don't know what you're doing, kids can get hurt, right? And so the same thing applies here. And I know it's going to read to your daughter who's trying, her sweet little brain is trying to solve for what happened with this will never happen again on my watch, which means that every one of her friends that has any sort of, I'm having dark thoughts, I'm thinking about these things, they know Lindsay will show up, and Lindsay's going to get tired. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so it may mean that when she comes home and says, or let's do this preemptively. So let me do this in order here. One thing I would, with all of my heart, you've heard me talk about this in romantic relationships with spouses and whatnot, boyfriends and girlfriends. I think we should do this here, and I think it will pay. You have an opportunity to give your daughter some tools that will, it's one of these change your family tree moments, okay? Two things if you haven't already. And this is one that even if you can't afford it, figure out and overpay for a really cool, nice mom and daughter, dad journal. And have a dialogue where y'all are writing to one another.
Okay.
And she can, right now, her 13-year-old brain plus her sadness plus the frenetic energy, and by the way, that will fade. That energy that's just buzzing, she needs to see, it's going to filter what she hears from you and from your husband. And y'all have some great experiences that you can pass along to her that are important that she needs to hear. And so being able to write that stuff down, having your husband say, I was just thinking about my buddy Dan, who died by suicide 4 years ago. Thought about him today, broke my heart. I miss him. Thank you so much, sweet daughter, for being so brave, missing your friend. That kind of letter will dramatically shift her healing, but it'll also give her two firm feet to walk under. So having how was today, and her just writing today was a good day. I feel like I'm doing good things. I'm making meaning of this, right? That's a way to y'all to connect that you think you're connecting when you're talking to teens, and often we're not. They know how to play our games. They know how to say what we need to hear so that we smile and think they're doing great, and they go about their lives. And so having a dialogue there, they will often write or text things they would never say in person. And so have that open dialogue and get your husband in on it too would be great. The second thing is, have you taken her out somewhere and told her how much you're hurting?
No.
Don't hide that from her. So here's just a life example here. The Ukraine invasion happened, and there was those videos of parents handing their kids off. I took my son up and let him know this is an important conversation. I closed the guest room door and sat down, and he knew. I think he thought he was in trouble. And I said, "Tell me what you've been hearing about what's going on in Russia at school." And he told me way more than I thought he would have known.
Mhm.
And he's asked me some hard questions, and I answer them as truthfully and honestly as possible. And then I told him, I was weeping the other day, Bubba. I started crying. And he said, "You?" I said, "Yeah, I was crying really hard, actually. I almost had to pull the car over because I was thinking about what would happen if I had to hand you and Josephine off to Mom, and y'all got in a car and just barely escaped, and I had to stay and protect our house." And he got really solemn. And I said, "These are scary moments, and I'm scared. And nobody's called me to fight. But here's some things that you and I are going to do. Here's some things me and your mom are going to do to be in service to our communities, to be healthy and whole around here." And so I didn't I didn't want him to think I'm a robot. I don't want him to think he's crazy for being scared.
Mhm.
And it sounds counterintuitive that we need to quote unquote show strength and perseverance and concrete. I'm going to hide this stuff in the bedroom from our kids. I'm going to cry in my closet. No, dude. Invite your kids into that. Not hysterics and rage and anger, all that, but be honest with your kids about how you're hurting. It would be a gift to your daughter if you take her out on a special date, just you two, and let her know that you couldn't help but think, what if that was my daughter? And sweetheart, if you ever are struggling, please tell me. Tell your dad, tell somebody at school, tell somebody. I love you. And the thought of losing you scares me so much. It breaks my heart so much. And I want you to know that I love you more than life itself, right? And I want you to hold her hands when you're telling her this stuff. And I want you to know that I could hardly breathe when you were talking. I hurt for that guy's mother. I hurt for that little boy, hurt for all his friends. Let her hear that from you. And her shoulders will drop. She'll realize she's not alone in her house. And your husband can go with you. This isn't a time for lectures. This is how you should feel. Her grief is her grief. It's going to be different than y'all's. Let her have her feelings. And God help us, middle school girls have feelings. And middle school boys do too. But man, let her know that you're walking alongside her in this. She's lucky to have you, Lindsay. Thank you so much for your call. I know there's a whole bunch of parents out in the country, millions of them, that are dealing with the same thing you're walking through, and your daughter's lucky to have you.